or welcome if it's your first time here. I'm Christine E. Schulze, your favorite Elvish author, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Here on my channel we do a lot of book readings, and I just started doing some reaction videos. However, today we're going to be doing a top 10 list of the top 10 reasons why Skyward Sword is my favorite Zelda game. For those of you who've been with me for long enough, you probably know by now that I love Zelda. You can even see it all over my wall, which I'll just go ahead and show you real quick. Hey, so I'll even show you guys, this is my wall of Zelda, right here in my living room. And as you can see, we got a poster from Symphony of the Goddesses. We've got this puzzle, which was definitely the worst thing to put together ever. We have this painting of the Great Deku Tree I made when I worked at daycare and the kids were painting, and I decided I wanted to go ahead and use leftover paint. We've got the classic Legend of the Wind Waker. And last, but certainly not least, we've got this massive poster, banner rather, if you will, showing characters from all the different Zelda games. Absolutely beautiful artwork. I'll go slowly so you guys can kind of catch all the characters there. At the bottom, it kind of starts with villains and with a woman fleeing with a child, which I'm assuming is to represent Link's mom. And then, by the time you go all the way up, if I can get this, you've got, you know, Hylia, the hero, Ganon. So yeah, this is my proof that I'm a hugely epic Zelda nerd. So Ocarina of Time was actually the very first Zelda game I ever played. I was 12 years old when I got my Nintendo 64 and played Ocarina for the first time, fell in love with it. It was the first time I had ever experienced a video game with a really intricate story and characters to interact with, and well, also the first time I played anything 3D. And I loved the music, and I just loved everything about it. And for the longest time, it was my absolute favorite. Probably partially because of that nostalgia, nothing could top it. I still loved Majora's Mask, I loved, Wind Waker, I enjoyed Twilight Princess, but then, Skyward Sword came along, and that finally bumped it up for me, and since then, Skyward Sword has been my favorite. Yes, even over Breath of the Wild, even though I acknowledge that Breath of the Wild is an absolutely beautiful game with beautiful story and emotion and everything. But yeah, Skyward Sword is the one for me still. Now, if you had come to me and said, Christine, I need you to think of 20 reasons why Skyward Sword is your favorite, I could probably do it. I'm that into it. Now, what I have to say is this top 10 is in no particular order. They're all really great reasons for me to love this game, equally great reasons. And I also want to let you know that there's going to be a lot of spoilers in this video, because I can't talk about my top 10 without talking about what happens in the game. So if you haven't played it yet and you really want to and you don't know what's going to happen, please don't watch this video. I don't want to ruin this game for you. I'd feel so bad about that, especially with it being my favorite. So yeah, let's just hop right into my top 10 reasons that I've picked out for why I love Skyward Sword and why it's my favorite Zelda game to date. Alright, so number 1 is Link and Zelda's friendship. Now I think that this one's probably a pretty obvious one, even if you didn't love the game a lot. I think that probably most people really love this aspect about it. So there are other Zelda games where Link and Zelda have interactions, going back to Ocarina of Time. They seem to have some kind of friendship. Zelda does seem to be sad at the end when she has to send him back in time. And then when he returns to her to ask, hey, can I go on this mission to look for Navi? I mean, it seems like they do have some kind of connection there. But you don't see them together alone. You see them together enough to have that emotional pull, but it really comes out in Skyward Sword and the relationship that particular Zelda and Link have together. It's fun, it's playful. You have that scene where Zelda defends Link from Groose. You start off with her waking him up in the morning with a letter, and then later on when she has to go into the crystal to sleep for 100 years, and she tells him, I want you to, I forget the exact words, but I want you to be there when I wake up, or I'll see you in the morning, sleepyhead, or whatever she says is so sweet. You can't not cry.
So I'm going to ask you a favor, sleepyhead. Ever since we were kids, I'd always be the one to wake you up when you slept in. But this time, when all of this is over, will you come to wake me up?
So they have a really beautiful relationship. I love their friendship. I love that you can sense some kind of romantic chemistry there. And at the end, you know, you get the idea that they're gonna stay in Hyrule together and essentially make babies and help establish humans in this new world of the surface. So number 2 would be Groos's character arc. So Groos was a character that I found surprisingly refreshing. He starts off as kind of the bully, kind of like the Mido character of the game. You know, kind of making fun of Link all the time because he's jealous. He has this major crush on Zelda. And then when he ends up following Link to the surface, at first he's kind of mopey and he's kind of down because he sees like, wow, Link probably really is the chosen hero, and what can I do? I'm just this dude. I don't have a magic sword. I'm not called by the goddess or anything. But Impa, and again, his and Impa's friendship I think is really sweet as well. Impa helps show him, as the old lady, of course, she helps show him that, no, you're gonna have a part to play in this too. And Groos does end up playing a part, and not only does he come to accept Link and be friends with him, despite the fact that he still has this love for Zelda, instead of being jealous, he really grows. And he comes to accept the friendship and the love that Link and Zelda have for each other. But even more than that, he ends up being able to step up as a hero. Groos creates that, you know, catapult machine that allows Link to defeat the imprisoned a third time, and also sends him into the forest when it's like all flooded. So he helps with that battle. He also helps, you know, protect Zelda when Link is fighting Giri, and Zelda goes flying through the air. Like he races to catch her and protect her. Groos plays little parts like that aren't so little. They're very meaningful. And so not only does he get to learn that there's like this hero inside himself, and he gets to see that he does have a purpose. It might be different than Link's part to play, but he still had a very important part to play. So I think that's a really cool arc. And again, I think it's a really cool arc for him that he starts off as this bully, and even though he still loves Zelda, instead of clinging to that jealousness, he comes to accept Link as a friend and uses that love to help the both of them, and to help the both of them save the world. So Groos is just probably one of my absolute favorite Zelda side characters ever, just because he has a really good character arc.
Oh yeah.
Alright, number 3 would be all of the emotional arcs in Skyward Sword. Now, I've already mentioned Groos, but there's some other great arcs too. One of my absolute favorites is Fi. Actually, I believe her name is Fi. I've called her Fi from the beginning, so in my mind now, she's just Fi forever. Some of you are probably gonna like yell at me about that, but it's okay. That's what we're here for, is to have discussion about things. But let me know down below. I do believe it's supposed to be Fi. Anyway, Fi, as she's nostalgically in my brain, the very end when she's going to leave, you know, Fi's is a very beautiful character. She's visually beautiful. I love when you're at the temple where you learn the songs, or when you're at one of the springs, you know, where you get the blessings, and when she dances around on the water, when she dances around on the wall. So first of all, she's a very beautiful character, you know. Second of all, even when you first meet her, it's just really cool because she's kind of mysterious and you don't know where she's leading you, but she leads you to what will ultimately become the Master Sword, and she's your companion throughout. And I know that sometimes she can be annoying, you know, but Navi could be annoying too.
Hey, listen! Hey, listen! Hey, listen!
And yet it's a very emotional scene when she goes off and leaves Link, representing that his mission is over and that he's completed everything that he was meant to do as the hero, and that therefore Navi's part is done in his story as well. The ending with Fi, when she's about to go into the sword, but then she has, you know, a few more moments left of consciousness, and she looks at you and she says that the time you spent together, that those moments are some of the most precious data that she has on hand. And coming from Fi, like means something. That means a lot, you know. She says that she doesn't quite have the words for it because she's created to be this kind of more logical being. whose sole purpose is to protect the hero and guide him. But even though she doesn't quite have the words for it, she believes that you've helped her to experience something that the humans call happiness. And I swear, like, I completely lose it every time with that scene. It's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful arc, especially to realize that Fia is then going to be sealed away in the Master Sword, and you're maybe never going to see her ever again. And then my boyfriend just finished Skyward Sword for the first time recently, and I played, the ending with him. I watched him do the ending, and he felt emotional because then he thought about all the other Zelda games that he's played, like all the games that come after that chronologically, and just to realize that every time he's had the Master Sword, he's had Fia's spirit with him, which was a really touching moment for him, and for me too. Like, I've never really thought about that, but it's true. So that's a character arc I love. I also love the arc where you find out that Impa is the old lady, and so she's been protecting, Zelda in the past as well as in the future this entire time. She, really protects Zelda as young Impa, and then as older Impa, or the old woman as she's called, she also plays her part. She helps Link. She helps him find the Gate of Time. She helps Groose grow into this really beautiful character. And just the reveal where you find out it's her, you see the bracelet, and then just kind of like Navi in a sense, her mission is done and she is able to pass peacefully. It's this really peaceful death. It's just kind of a symbolization of her moving on to the next life. And then you have some more minor character arcs too. You have Fledge, who, he's really determined to be strong and to learn some courage, and he does that. You've got Petro, who turns from a monster into not, although to be fair, I think he was still pretty cool as a monster. You've got, the little love stories between Karain and Colin, or between Colin and the toilet hand, whatever you want. So I guess, maybe that's some more commentary on the little side quests than character arcs, but I really love those too, even though they're short and there's obviously not as big of an arc as for other characters. And once again, I think you could also mention the character arc between Link and Zelda and just how their friendship grows and develops, and how this whole journey they go on brings them closer to each other. And that's something that we don't always see in some of the other Zelda games. Right, number 4 on my list is Girahim. Yes, he gets his own point in this top 10. Alright, so Girahim probably has to be one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Zelda villain. And I know some of you are going to roll your eyes. I know, like, there was this talk about how all the girls think Girahim's so hot, and some girls like Skyward Sword only for Girahim. I obviously don't like Skyward Sword only for Girahim, but I did think he was a really well-drawn character. He's absolutely fabulous, and in his own words,
"Behold! Such beauty! Such a pure form! Such an exquisite physique! Such stunning features! Yes, I've pretty much got it all."
There you have it. So yeah, I like who he is. Aesthetically, I like who he is as a person. He's very flamboyant. He's very, fabulous and outgoing. Like, he's gorgeous and he knows it, type of thing. And he's also kind of arrogant, and he can have a bit of a temper, which does not serve him well. His pride does not serve him well. He likes the idea of toying with Link, which actually works against his favor. Because if he had just killed Link, he wouldn't get himself into this whole mess. And Demise might have come back a lot faster. But, Girahim does have somewhat of his own will, even though he's supposed to be serving Demise the whole time. In fact, I've kind of written a book about that. I have a Zelda fanfic that I'm reading through on my channel here right now called Demon Queen. And it's kind of a Skyward Sword fanfic, but it's really a Girahim fanfic, and it's a crossover with Ocarina of Time, where he comes into contact with Kome and Katake when they're younger, and Impa and some other characters, and that's all I'll say about that, in case y'all want to go listen to the videos, or you can also find it as a free download on Smashwords, and Barnes & Noble, and some other websites. But yeah, so Girahim, I like that you fight him multiple times throughout the game. I think that adds more to it story-wise, how he just keeps pursuing you. The last battle with him is intense and fun. Fighting him was really challenging for me the first time, especially because I played this game on the Wii, but I liked the concept. I know some people weren't crazy about the motion controls, I personally always really liked them. I think they did make some things more challenging, but I did like the concept of having to hold your sword the right way in order to, slash at him or do other things. And yeah, can we talk about the reveal that he was Demise's sword spirit? Essentially, he was Demise's sword, just like Fi is essentially your sword. I thought that was the absolute coolest reveal in parallel. A lot of times I get so into the story, like in the moment, that I don't guess things ahead of time. But now having like replayed it and looking back on it, I can see, oh yeah, there were hints that he could have been, a sword spirit. He has some of the similar character design traits that Fi has, but I just really love that, and I just love how his character develops as the game goes along. Number 5, we're going to talk about the gameplay itself, specifically because I just mentioned the motion controls. Now, I understand, again, that some people hated those. I always loved them. I thought they were super fun and that they really added a lot to the game. I love, whipping people with my whip. I love all the puzzles and battles where you had to hold your sword a certain direction. So I thought it was cleverly done, but I understand it's not for everybody, and I still think that the game is super fun even without the motion controls. It has a lot of fun items, which I had just played Wind Waker before I played Skyward Sword. So just kind of carrying over some of those items, plus adding a bunch of new fun items, again like the whip, I really am a fan of that. And just the gameplay itself, there was never a time where I thought, this is awful, I hate this. The gameplay was super fun to me. Again, I know that's a super subjective opinion, but it's definitely one of my top 10 reasons. If you can make a game where I'm happy playing the entire time, even things like flying the bird, I understand that the bird can be a little bit slow to get places, it can kind of take a while, but just like the sailing in Wind Waker, the bird never bothered me. I was always okay with it. And like I said, a lot of the other gameplay, I wasn't just like, oh, I'm okay with this. I really love a lot of the items. I really love a lot of the dungeons, which we're going to get to in a second. Number 6 is Link's spiritual growth throughout the game. So I'm a spiritual person myself, being a Christian, but I don't think you have to be of any particular faith to really appreciate the spiritual journey that Link goes on throughout the game. One concept that I really loved is that through doing the trials and, collecting the flames, that Link not only goes on a spiritual journey where he's constantly growing in strength, growing in spirit, and his sword grows with him in both a spiritual sense and in a sense of growing in magical power. It's the one Zelda game where I really feel that Link grows as a person. I've talked about some of the other characters having arcs, but I feel like in this one, Link has a really good arc as well, where he's just constantly growing. He learns wisdom and courage and power through these trials, and his spirit grows and his sword grows along with him. And I just really love that aspect of feeling like me playing as Link, I'm also growing, along with all these other characters who are also having really great character growth. Number 7, for why Skyward Sword is my favorite Zelda game, is the dungeons. So this is, to date, the only Zelda game where I can say there is no dungeon that I absolutely hated. I think that my least favorite in Skyward Sword is the third one where you're in the desert. I don't hate that one though. It wasn't my favorite. It was a little bit slow to me at some points, but again, there was no temple I hated, and there were a lot of them that I really enjoyed. In fact, can we say for once that there was a fun water temple? Like, what? The ancient cistern, besides just being a beautiful design, like visually, it's just super fun. I love that you have the top portions where, it's all the water stuff, but then down beneath in the dungeon, you got the dead and the zombies and just some random stuff going on that you did not expect. You have that moment where you have to climb up the rope and the zombies are like latching on and climbing up after you. And the first time I did that, it was super thrilling and super creepy moment. I know I've already mentioned this item, but you get the whip, which I really enjoy. And let's talk about Koloktos, who the first time I fought him, I admit, was my least favorite. I hated him. He was super hard for me. But now he's my absolute favorite boss of the entire game. I think he's super fun. And I think he's super interesting. Not only do you get to whip his arms off, which is great fun for me, especially if I am using the motion controls, but there's a whole idea of him dropping his swords and you using them against him that I find unique and dynamic, and it's just a really great time. So yeah, as opposed to a temple like the Water Temple in Ocarina, which I honestly don't hate, but you know, let's face it, it is tedious and it's not the best temple in the world. Even the Water Temple in Twilight Princess, like I didn't like a lot. The Water Temple that's in Majora's Mask, the Great Bay Temple, I hate that place. There's nothing that I enjoy about that place, and certainly not the boss fight. So for me personally, Skyward Sword has the only water temple that I really actually genuinely love and that I don't hate. And it doesn't have any temples that I despise either. Some other temples I really enjoy are the fire one toward the beginning where you're rolling around on the ball. I think that was a very unique concept. And even though there's a lot of temples in the game, it never felt temple heavy to me, which is a sign that you've made good temples, in my opinion. An unpopular opinion is that Twilight Princess is actually one of my least favorite Zelda games to play. I love the story, I love the characters and the character arcs. I could sit there and watch cutscenes from Zelda Universe all day. They have like the Zelda Universe has the cutscenes with the characters dubbed. If you've never seen them, you absolutely should. It's a great time to just sit there and watch like essentially a Zelda movie. So I can sit there and watch the story all day long. But temple-wise, a lot of the temples I just didn't personally enjoy in Twilight Princess. They felt like a drag to me, and the whole game feels like a big temple to me, and I don't like that. Again, I know some people love it, and that's cool, but for me, I love Skyward Sword's temples, and they never felt like a drag to me, and they never felt like a chore or like work. They felt very fun. They had fun puzzles, and you know, a lot of times they had fun bosses to fight. And so, yeah, dungeons are a big highlight of this particular game for me, especially since there are other games where they're just not my favorite thing. Number 8 is the clever reusing of the same spaces. For me personally, I enjoyed how the game took the same spaces and kept reusing them and recycling them in different ways. Now, I can understand why that's upsetting or annoying or frustrating to some people, or why they didn't like it so much, especially if something like Breath of the Wild is your favorite game and you really love that big open world. And here's the thing, I love that big open world too. But I just never minded the idea that Skyward Sword had more limited spaces and that it kept reusing them. In fact, I personally found it to be quite clever. Now, part of that might be the author in me, because I kind of see it from a story perspective, where you go to each of the 3 areas the first time. You've got the forest, and then the fire area, and then the desert. And you go to the temples, and then you have to revisit them for these temples, and then you have to revisit them a 3rd time to collect the different songs from the 3 different dragons. However, I like that for those 3 sections, they did not do more temples, because even though I did enjoy these temples very much, I feel like that would have been overdoing it on the temples. I thought that it was unique and clever that they did something different story-wise with each of those sections. So in the forest, you've got where it's flooded, and you have to collect the tag tones, which again, I personally absolutely love. I think the tag tones are adorable, and I wish there were actually more of them. And of course, I just love music in general, so that could be another reason. But who doesn't love, you know, rainbow-colored tadpoles that are music notes? Who doesn't love that? And then in the desert, you have the storyline of trying to heal the dragon who lives there by planting the tree and get in the past and getting the fruit in the future. And then for the fire region, you have the concept of all of your weapons getting scattered across, because as you were trying to land, there's this big volcanic explosion and you have to sneak around and collect them. So I liked all that because I thought it was different. I thought it was unique. I thought it makes sense that we're going back to these same places, but doing something different. And I really enjoyed it, which, speaking of characters though, as far as the fire dragon is concerned, I kind of wish we saw him more, but at the same time, it's kind of amusing to me how we see him like for 2 seconds, and he's just like super chill. He's just like, yeah, dude, you can totally have this song, and he doesn't even care. But then you have the water dragon over here who's super strict and super like, I have to test you by flooding the world, you know? So it's kind of funny to me, the differences in the dragon's personalities. But yeah, and then even certain spaces like in Skyloft itself, there's places that when you first start the game, you don't realize that they're going to be important. Like the tower where the light beam shoots out and opens the way in that big cloud and the thunderhead. And then even the way that opens up the final temple, Skyview Temple, all that stuff is right there in the same space with you the entire time. You don't realize what the significance is going to be until later. But I just think it's a super clever use of space. Again, that might be the author in me, because I also see it from a cool story point of view that, oh wow, we get to go back here, but it's going to play a different role this time. I just personally think that that's really cool, and it's something that I enjoyed about the game that I thought was well done. Number 9 is the music. Now, I feel like this one will probably be less of a controversial topic because, let's face it, Zelda music in general is usually awesome. But for this one, from the moment the game starts, you can tell this is the first game where they were able to use an actual symphony and that they just went all out. It really brings out the emotion of every single moment in the game. Some favorite themes are, you know, the Ballad of the Goddess and Fee's theme, especially at the end where you're saying goodbye to Fee and she's saying super emotional things, which is super emotional because Fee doesn't say super emotional things. But we don't need to get back into that again. But yeah, it's just all of the music, I think, is just phenomenal in this game and just really brings out the emotions. And I'm really a person where if you can get me emotionally invested in something, it's gonna be my favorite. And that's another reason too why this game is just such a favorite for me, is because of all the emotional connection I have to it. Again, I acknowledge that something like Breath of the Wild is unique and just really cool, and that open world and just all the exploring I absolutely loved. And I do have emotional connection to it and the story, but as long as I have that emotional connection, the strongest with Skyward Sword, it's going to continue to be my favorite. And the music is something that really enhances that emotional connection for me. And reason number 10, last but not least, because again, these are in no certain order, is just the visuals and the artwork in the game. I think that besides the emotion of the music, that it's a visually beautiful game, and that for me personally also brings out emotion. I can cry about something even if it's not happy or sad. If it's just beautiful, I will cry over it and become emotionally attached and overwhelmed by it. And I think it's just a visually beautiful game. Whether you're talking about the landscapes or whether you're talking about the character designs, again, they really went all out for this one. One of my favorite character designs is actually Demise. His character reveal is so intimidating but so cool. Like, he actually looks dangerous. He looks like a demon king, and he's got the flaming hair, and I just think that he's an excellent reveal. I think that Fee's design is gorgeous. I think that Girihim's design is gorgeous. I think that Link and Zelda, that they have really good designs. I like that Zelda looks a little bit different. She's the only Zelda that, well, correct me if I'm wrong, I have only played console Zeldas just because, quite frankly, I don't have the money or time right now to get invested into the handhelds, even though I know I would enjoy some of them for sure. But as far as console Zeldas, I know that she's the only one who has the bangs, like I do. So some really good, unique character designs, and even the minor characters, I enjoyed their designs as well. And some really beautiful designs as far as the settings also. Skyloft is a lovely town, there's a lot of detail, there's a lot of color, and that really just helps tie everything together and enhances it between the music, the emotions, the visuals. They all just tie together to make this really beautiful package. Alright, so that's it. That is my top 10 reasons why Skyward Sword is my absolutely favorite Zelda game of all time to date. We'll see what happens after Breath of the Wild 2 comes out. We'll see if they can get me here strong enough to surpass Skyward Sword for me. But yeah, what did you think of this video? Did you enjoy it? Would you like to see me do another top 10 video in the future? I don't think it's probably the main thing that I'm going to be doing on my channel, but I'm not opposed to doing another one because it was fun and I like sharing my thoughts with you guys. What do you think of Skyward Sword? Do you love it? Do you hate it? And why? I'm interested in hearing any and all of your thoughts down below in the comments. It will not offend me if you hate this game. I did tell my boyfriend that we couldn't date if he hated Skyward Sword, but that's different, and thankfully he loved it. But yeah, I'm not dating you guys, so y'all can have whatever opinions you want to down below in the comments. On that note, my lovely viewers and readers, happy reading, happy watching, and I'll see you in my next video.